Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari So, we have one devotee missing. I just have to see if he's sent a message. Yeah. Oh, he told somebody. Okay. Hare Krishna. So we have, okay. So So then everyone's here.
Yeah.
So this is something Srila Prabhupada has said about initiation, which is, it's not just for the initiates, it's for anyone who has been initiated or who wants to get initiated. It's a little bit heavy, but guru means heavy. Not really heavy, but maybe. You would think it's heavy. We'll see. Prabhupada had decided to give an initiation lecture based on chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita, verse 1. Prabhupada explained that when Krishna says, Mad Ashraya, take shelter of me, he means take shelter of my representative, Guru. That's from the first verse. Mad Ashraya, take shelter of me. Take shelter of me means take shelter of my representative. Not that now I am very much advanced, I don't require any help from my Guru, as some are doing. This is rascaldom. You cannot get Krishna by overcoming Guru. That is not possible. Therefore, Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Guru Krishna Kripaya Pai. We should always remember that by the mercy of Krishna, we get Guru, and by the mercy of Guru, we get Krishna. So we have to seek mercies of both of them. The business of the disciple, Prabhupada pointed out, was to please the Guru. If he is satisfied, then Krishna becomes immediately satisfied because he is the agent. That is very easy to understand. Suppose you are working in the office. Your immediate boss, the superintendent, if he is pleased, that means the managing director is also pleased. You haven't got to please the managing director separately. If you please his representative and the managing director sees the report, yes, this man is working nicely, then he accepts. Pleasing the Guru, Prabhupada explained, meant strictly following his orders, especially those given at initiation. Quote, whatever sinful activities you have done, that is squared up. Now account closed. Now you begin a new life, devotional life. And if you stick to the principle as it is instructed, do not have illicit sex, do not have intoxicants, do not eat meat, do not play gambling, speculate. You promise before Krishna and before the spiritual master, before the Vaishnavas, so many witnesses, and if you violate, then you can understand what you are doing. You promise before the deity. In other words, what did you just do? You promise before the deity. Krishna. The deity of Krishna is not different. So when initiation takes place, we promise so many things, but if we do not follow, if we do not keep our promise, that is a great fault. Accidental fall downs were excused, Srila Prabhupada said. But he warned against the cheating process. Suppose a smoker has taken to Krishna consciousness. He has promised that I shall not smoke. But all of a sudden, suppose his friends induce him, what is that, smoke today? So sometimes you become induced. But we should always remember that I have taken this vow. Why should I be induced by my friends to smoke? That is very nice. But even if by mistake you do that, that can be excused, but not willfully. In other words, you did it by mistake. You weren't intending to do it. It was an accident. That can be excused. Now, nobody is seeing Krishna's not here. Let me smoke now. Not that. Krishna's eyes are everywhere. You cannot escape Krishna's eyes. This is from The Great Transcendental Adventure. Hallowed Be Thy Name, Melbourne, 1974, by Kormadas. So, when, the question may be there that I'm chanting Hare Krishna, I'm doing everything, then why do I need to be initiated? Like, what's changing? What's different? And yesterday I was just hearing that in some versions of Gaudiya Math, you don't even get the holy name. You can't chant until you're initiated. It's. I'm sure a lot of you have the question, because initiation means beginning. So he's not beginning. She's not beginning. They've been chanting a while. So, in many places, Prabhupada said, it's not really necessary because the real initiation is when you commit to following the practices. That's your real initiation. So this is like formalizing it. But what it is doing, it's formalizing the commitment, which is important. Because when you formalize something, that means you are officially committing to it now. You may have committed to it before, but now it's formal. And they're committing in front of all of you. So as I often say, if you find them breaking the principles, beat them up. You don't want to be beaten up, just follow the principles, yeah. So, in a sense, we could say, in a sense, it's not only their responsibility to follow, it's not only my responsibility to help them follow. It's all of our responsibility to help them. It's a community. And they're making this vow, but you're all hearing the vows they're making. So in a sense, they're making the vows to you as well. So, one of the significant things about initiation is they've been following these principles, but now they're committing fully. They've committed internally long ago, now they're going to formalize it. But here's something interesting which I want to share with all of you. And I think it's a problem if we think at the time of initiation, I make the vows and that's it. I heard some of you were initiated last week. Is that true? Yeah. When you make a vow, especially a vow like this, you have to make it every day. It's not you make it. I took my vows April, May, June. 55 years and 3 months ago. So, I did it then, I was like, whatever. No. It's like every day I have to make those vows. Every day I get up and say, 16 rounds, 4 principles. And so the vows are not meant to be made once. That's a mistake. And I did an experiment once. It's a kind of scary experiment. It was actually in the UK many years ago. We did a workshop on vows. So, in the middle of the workshop, I said, to all of you who are initiated, would you like to reconfirm your vows? Like, make them again. Just we'll create a little fire yagya. And some devotees were like, I think it's an idea. I'm not in charge of ISKCON. If I were, I would make this happen. On Guru Purnima, everyone take their vows again officially. That's what we do on Guru, sit 500 devotees, go around, take your vows, Because otherwise it cheapens it. I made my vows 50 years ago, I don't follow now. No, you should make them every day. When you make a vow, you're not vowing to do it today, you're vowing to do it your whole life. That's what it means. You could make a vow for a week, you could make a Kartik Vrata for a month, you can vow on Ekadasi, I'm not going to drink water, eat. You can make a Mona Brat, I'm not going to speak for a day. But when you make these vows, it's a lifetime, so it's every day. You have to remake it, so I think that's important. One time Prabhupada was asked, how can we please you? And he said, follow your initiation vows. Because many people weren't. So it's, Prabhupada was merciful. He gave us the opportunity, gave us the opportunity to become Krishna conscious by taking initiation. But he really expected that if we promised, we would do it. And many of us have the experience that due to our conditioning, we don't, our taste for sadhana, especially our taste for japa, is not always there. It's not always mature. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. Sometimes we want to chant, sometimes we feel like chanting, sometimes we don't feel like chanting. And even with the regulative principles, sometimes there may be temptations placed in front of us that make it difficult to follow. And the thought that I made this vow to my spiritual master is what will save you. I can't. I actually feel like breaking this principle. I don't feel like chanting my rounds, but I promise. And that's what Prabhupada expected. And Prabhupada said it's the love and affection between the guru and the disciple that keeps the disciple going. Because I have this experience with my own disciples that sometimes they would say that I was having a really hard time. And I didn't want to chant, but I didn't want to let you down, and I promised you, so I did it. So that's the, you take advantage of this relationship, this connection. You take advantage of this vow. The reason we make vows is to force ourselves to do something we fear that perhaps we wouldn't do if we didn't make the vow. It's 9:30 at night, you have 3 rounds left, you just been thinking about going to bed since 8 o'clock, and you finally see your bed. You don't want to finish your rounds. Of course, you could finish them the next day. But, I promised my guru, I have to do it. So you chant, maybe they're not good rounds, but you promised your guru, so you do it. So that's the power of the guru-disciple relationship. It's based on love and affection. And we can do things that maybe we wouldn't ordinarily do. Definitely do things we may not feel like doing because of that connection. So that's the value of the initiation. It was one of the big values of the initiation, and it's really a travesty and a shame if someone gets initiated and they don't take advantage of that and say, well, I didn't know what I was doing, I was young, or whatever. It's not the way Prabhupada wanted us to think. I'll give you a story. The older generation, people who are no longer alive today, that generation, I was told, when they did business deals, they didn't have contracts, they only had handshakes. And the commitment level was so high that you just needed a handshake. That was it. And, so I was in Mauritius, and there was a man there who had helped us tremendously. And he was basically with Prabhupada the whole time Prabhupada was there. And he helped the movement from the very beginning, and the movement was very young, and we made a lot of mistakes and did stupid things, which kind of frustrated him. And he's like, do it this way, register it this way, fix it this way, and we forgot to do it, or we did it the wrong way. And he'd have to kind of bail us out. He was a member of parliament, so he could just go to the prime minister and say, just let them do this, even though they didn't apply properly. And so I was talking to him once. He had given us a farm, so he was very devoted. He really kind of fell in love with Prabhupada. And so I was with him once, and he said, you people have messed up so many times. And I've had to, I don't know if he used the word bail you out, but that was the connotation. I've had to bail you out so many times. And then he said, I don't know why I keep doing this. It's like, am I stupid? Am I an idiot? I'm always helping you. And then he stopped and he said, oh, I know why, because I promised Prabhupada I would help. Well, so when I saw that, I thought, this is such a good example of commitment. He's telling us, I don't even want to help you because, you're just a bunch of kids messing things up. Why should I help you? I don't even want to. And so he was actually reflecting. He was actually, does that happen all the time or just when I talk? My words are on fire. So basically what he was saying is, I didn't want to help you, but I gave my word to Prabhupada, so that's why I'm doing it. So that's the power of giving your word. And a lot of times we make a vow, but we don't realize what we're doing. Like we make the vow, but I should take initiation, I've been around, I'll get a name, and I'll be in with the in crowd kind of thing. But to really take advantage of a vow, if you make it deeply, then in those times when you don't want to follow, because you've taken the vow, you will. And that's the point of taking the vow, because you all know life is, full of surprises, and sometimes you end up in situations where it's difficult to be Krishna conscious. It's difficult to chant your rounds, to finish your rounds. And it's because you make the vow, and the vow was made deeply, and you took the vow because you wanted to make sure you would follow the principles and chant your rounds in those times when it was difficult, because you made the vow. Because if you didn't make the vow, it's too hard. You could easily stop. So that's really, really important. Otherwise, it's like, why take a vow unless the vow is going to empower you? Sri Sri Radha Vandani Shara. Take advantage of the vow. And of course, you don't have to do it at initiation. You could do it any time. A lot of gurus who are taking disciples who are not chanting 16 rounds, they'll make vows to the gurus for less, or 3 principles, 3.5, 4 rounds, 8 rounds, 12 rounds, whatever. Or some may want to chant more than 16. They can do that. Because that's the power of the vow. It binds you so you can't go beyond the parameters of that vow if you've actually taken it. Hare Krishna. So, we can talk about the 10 offenses. Before we talk about the 10 offenses, I want to explain something. We call this Harinam, well, Prabhupada called it Harinam Diksha, Harinam initiation. And during Harinam initiation, Prabhupada talked about the 10 offenses. So the idea was, this is you're taking vows, you'll follow principles. These principles are necessary to follow if you want to chant properly. So these principles in and of themselves just put you in Sattva-gun, basically. They're not spiritual in and of themselves. No meat eating, as like Prabhupada said, gorillas don't eat meat, monkeys don't eat meat. So not eating meat in and of itself is neither here nor there. And Prabhupada often said, if Krishna wanted us to eat meat, we would eat meat. But the idea of these principles is they put you in a sattvic position. They put you in a position of not contaminating yourself by the 4 main pillars of sin, so then you can chant, or your chanting will be effective. Because if you don't do that, you're not going to get to the stage of pure chanting. If you don't get to the stage of pure chanting, you're not going to get love of Krishna. So the vow, in the Gaudiya Math, they don't vow. They just, here's your beads, chant. There's no vow to follow anything. So Prabhupada was different in this sense. I think maybe he looked at us and said, it's really important that they make these vows because they didn't grow up following these principles. So, now some of you might, it's interesting that we make these vows because someone could say, well, according to Shastra, according to Prahlad Maharaj, Sarva gunas tata samasate sara, which means all the good qualities of the demigods are manifest in a devotee. So wouldn't it be that if I just chant, I would have the power to follow the principles. So why do I have to vow to follow them? I should just chant, right? Because the byproduct of chanting is you get the power to follow them, and all good qualities develop. It's interesting. Of course, it's not what Prabhupada did. So the best analogy I can give is a circle. If you chant Hare Krishna, you become purified. But at the same time, these four principles you have to make an effort to follow, because if you don't, then your chanting will not be proper and it won't give you the power to follow. So for example, let's say you just joined the temple and you want to learn to chant, and we give you some beads and you say, how do you chant? And I go, well, just be more humble than a blade of grass. That's how you chant, you know. Like, okay, how do I do that? Good luck, Prabhu. I couldn't even tell you how. I don't know, you know. I try to, you know, respect everybody and try to feel yourself helpless. It's like we're trying to be humble, we're trying to practice it. But if I chant purely, humility develops. But if I don't try to chant humbly, then I can't chant purely, for the humility develops. So it goes in a circle. Does that make sense? Because sometimes there's questions about this. If I chant purely, I'll become humble. If I practice humility, I'll chant purely. If I chant purely, I'll become humble. So I have to keep practicing everything. Whatever it is, you know, Krishna tells us to do so many things and control ourselves. And all these things purify us so that our chanting becomes more pure. Most of you know this question about deity worship was addressed by Srila Prabhupada. Is it absolutely important? Is it absolutely essential? And, let's sit over here. Was it absolutely essential? And Prabhupada said, no, it's not essential. It's not essential that everyone is initiated as a Brahmin. He said, but it will help your chanting. So it will help your chanting. Deity worship will help your chanting. Reading Bhagavatam will help your chanting. Doing Sankirtan. Getting people to chant Hare Krishna will help your chanting. So they're taking initiation and they're making a vow to do certain things, which if they don't, it's impossible for them, or almost impossible for them, to chant Shuddhanam, the pure name, and the chanting of the pure name is the goal. So that's the significance of initiation, of taking those vows. Without these vows, your chanting won't be pure. Does that make sense? Yes, no? Anybody?
Yes. Yes, makes a lot of sense.
Raise your hand if you're awake. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes!
Okay, good. It's a very important point, don't you think?
Yes.
Yeah. Have you ever tried to chant good rounds, and the harder you tried, the worse they got? Sometimes, I can't say all the time, but sometimes it's something you have done yesterday or last week, or something you said that you shouldn't have said about a devotee that was offensive. And the harder you try to chant, it's just you can't, because your lifestyle, what you did in your life, is affecting your consciousness. And that's why in the 10 offenses, there's only, I think, one or two offenses I think there's only one offense that really talks about the consciousness you need to be in while you're chanting, and the rest are the consciousness or the activities you need to do when you're not chanting. It's pretty interesting, isn't it? So that's the significance of initiation. And at initiation, one of the principles at initiation is that the name is changed. So it's a kind of a problem, because some people are not ready to be initiated, but they want a spiritual name. What to do? Because Prabhu, you've been around like 86 years and you're still, Bhakta Joe, like, what's up? You know, and you feel like, well, you know, I'm not chanting 16, I'm chanting 15. I'm not following the 4 principles, I'm following 3.99 principles. You know. Once every, 10 years I, slip, drink coffee or something. So then you feel like, well, I need to belong, so I'll just fib a little, on the principles. So we don't want to do that. But anyway, it's a principle of initiation, and the spiritual master, he can adjust. He can say 4 rounds and no principles, just whatever. He can say just chant as much as you can. And there have been initiations in a history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism like that. Like, how many rounds did the Grihastas chant in Gaudiya Math? Well, one of Prabhupada's godbrothers said, I was there, I heard it, he said, the instruction was, don't starve the mala, which means chant something. It was in those days they considered Grihasta, like if you're a Grihasta, it's like, sorry, do your best, Maybe someday you'll become Varnaprast and there'll be hope for you, It was kind of looked at like that. So, there were no vows. It's just, okay, now you're initiated, here's your name, don't starve them all. Next. Yes. And sometimes you hear stories that so-and-so went to a program. They're not a devotee. They went to a program for the first time and they got initiated. They come out with a spiritual name. So, like, and you've been waiting in ISKCON for 46 years and you still haven't, gotten approval from your temple president. Just go down the street, They won't ask you any questions, and you come out, Krishna Dasi, it's like, well, don't starve the mala. How many rounds? Don't starve the mala. So Prabhupada could have done that, but he didn't. And so what we're doing today is what Prabhupada did. He wanted us to make these vows. Now, in Gaudiya Math, we have heard that they have said, or other circles of Vaishnavas, we have said that it takes 3 lives to perfect your Krishna consciousness. So it'll take you 3 lives to go back to Godhead. And Prabhupada, of course, you don't know how many lives you've been trying, but let's assume this was the first. So we would assume, okay, this life, one more, so then I can go back to Godhead in the life after this. And Prabhupada said over and over again, 1 life. 16 rounds, 4 principles. So it's kind of interesting if you look at it historically where, don't starve the mala and there's no vows to follow anything, just chant Hare Krishna. The idea being if you chant, you'll get purified and you would start following, At least ideally, that's the point. Now Prabhupada comes, assesses the situation, and he asks us 16 minimum. He always said, how many rounds? 16 minimum. 16 on the beads, unlimited off the beads, like that. And the 4 principles, which they're not easy to follow. We're all raised, most of us were raised not following them, at least not following all of them. And then Prabhupada says, if you do this, 16 rounds, 4 principles, in this life you can go back to Godhead. And even his own disciples questioned it, because it sounds like, really? Because that lecture Prabhupada said, even if you're attached to one sweet ball, you'll have to come back. Well, if it's Mahaprasadam, I don't know, that may be okay. But Prabhupada would say, like, if you're attached to anything in this world, sometimes I ask the devotees, like, Krishna came today, said, let's go. What would be the first thing you'd think I can't give up? Like, oh no, my. You mean if I go now, my. What is my? It's an interesting exercise. Is there something in this world that would hold you here if Krishna said, let's go, and you're like, can you come next year because I'm working on this thing? I was just, my Amazon package is in the mail, and it's just like, it's new technology. Could I just wait a few more days? I mean, it's a reality. It's like that, isn't it? So when Prabhupada said 16 rounds, 4 principles, everybody was like, really? And they questioned Prabhupada on several occasions. And even though Prabhupada, when he was questioned, said yes, they still doubted it. They said, really, Prabhupada? How was that possible? And I was told one time, they were asking Prabhupada, really, like once, twice, and Prabhupada said, I think this is, I hope I remember it. Anyway, it's, if it's not, it's, dramatic license. Prabhupada said, if you chant 16 rounds, I guarantee I will take you back to God. And it was like, slammed his hand on the desk, like, stop asking me, I will. And so, in analyzing this, not just myself analyzing this, but others analyzing this, if Prabhupada asks Krishna for something, do you think Krishna's going to say no? If Prabhupada says to Krishna, see this lady here? Take her back to Godhead. Krishna's not going to go, nah, I don't think so. I don't like her tilak. Wrong color, sorry. Not going to say that, right? So, if Prabhupada says, Krishna, if they chant 16 rounds, follow the 4 principles, we need to let them in, back door. Maybe not the front door, but the back door. What do you think Krishna's going to say? Nah, 64 or nothing. No. The other day I was reading a verse just to emphasize this. It's 1864. The verse before Sarvadharma, so it's 64, right? Man mana bhava mad bhakto majiji mam namaskuru. Mam evaishasi satyam te pratijani priyosime. You all know this verse, or most of us do. It's interesting. There's something in the Sanskrit that's interesting. Man mana, think of me, bhava, to become, mad bhakto, my devotee. Think of me, become my devotee. Mad yaji mam namaskuru. Worship me, yaji mam namaskuru, and offer obeisances unto me. Mam evaishyasi, you will come to me. Satyam te, surely you will come to me. Satyam means surely, or satyam means truth. So Prabhupada translates surely or definitely, or are you coming at 9 o'clock? Definitely, surely I'm coming, don't worry, yes. You don't worry about it. It's like Krishna saying, you don't believe me, do you? Satyam te. So he says, surely you will come to me. And then Krishna's thinking, they still don't believe me. So he says, pratijani, I promise. Surely you will come to me, I promise. Interesting, isn't it? Interesting verse, don't you think? So there it is, all you doubters, it's right there in the Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna didn't come, he didn't send Mahaprabhu so that nobody would go back to Godhead. So Prabhupada looked at us, he assessed the situation. He felt that if we were sincere and that if we chanted well, we could follow the 4 principles and we could chant 16 rounds because the holy name is so powerful. And he just wanted to make sure by telling us follow these 4 principles and make sure we would chant enough so that our chanting would be pure, we would chant enough, and if we did that, we could become Krishna conscious. If you chant bad rounds, it's not going to work. It's not. When Prabhupada said 16, he didn't mean 16 offensive rounds. So you follow the principles to put you in the situation where you can chant good japa, and if you chant good japa, 16 rounds a day, you will be qualified to go back to God. And if you're not, Prabhupada will come and qualify you. Hare Krishna. So in a sense, initiation is a celebration of this reality of the extreme mercy of Srila Prabhupada, in which he made this, I think, a deal with Krishna to get us back to God. And you know that story where Prabhupada said, you just hold on to my lotus feet or hold on to my dhoti, I have the key to the back door. So it's like, I visualize this movie, you're trying to go back to Godhead, and then you get there to the security gates, and they're checking you out, and like, what do they say? Have that saying, what did the cat bring home? It's like, how'd you get here? And they're checking you, are you qualified to go back to Godhead? And, the security gates are all going, beep, 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 lust, anger, greed, envy. It's all beeping, you know. And you're getting depressed and you're going, but, you can't go here. And then you say, I'm a disciple or grand disciple or follower of Bhaktivedanta. It's like, oh, okay. It's like VIP treatment, you know. Walk around the security gates. Okay, we'll take you in, you know. And Prabhupada said, I'll be there to meet you, and I will bring you and put your hand in Krishna's hand. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, one more. I'm sorry to go so long, but I get excited sometimes. Another important point for all of us is that I am just a fortunate soul to have met Prabhupada and fortunate that I'm still here following, so that I can be a conduit of his mercy. It's not my mercy, it's his mercy. And so the mercy that we're getting today through our spiritual masters, it's the same mercy that Prabhupada's disciples got. The mercy is like, it's not different. It's not like it goes through the disciplic succession and it turns colors and, you know, Prabhupada's mercy was white, but your disciples' mercy is kind of brown. It's not the same. It doesn't taste as good, you know. It's like, it's not. No, the mercy is the same. And one of Prabhupada's godbrothers said something amazing. He said, if Nityananda Prabhu went to New York City, he wouldn't have gotten any different result. It wouldn't have been like everyone in New York City became Krishna conscious. He said it would have been the same because Nityananda's mercy was being transmitted by Prabhupada. So it's not like, you know, Lord Chaitanya came and, you know, so many people ran away and didn't follow. So it's really interesting. It's like the mercy, it's Nityananda's mercy. And, you know, look at all of us. You know, 99.9% of the people that joined were hippies. And we were all like 19, 20, 21, and we're opening temples. Like, what do we know? Hardly tie our shoes, you know. We, you know, how many chapters in the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhu? I don't know, 22 or something. Like, we didn't know anything. And the movement spread. Why? Because we were willing to follow Prabhupada. And so that mercy was coming through us. Very unqualified people, but it was the same mercy that we got, we were giving to other people, and other people were becoming devotees. So the mercy we get today through our spiritual masters and devotees, it's the same mercy that Prabhupada gave us. It's not different. It does the same thing. It's the same medicine. And I think that's important because I think some of us think, oh, if I just got Prabhupada's mercy, then I'll be good, right? You ever feel like that? You know, you Prabhupada disciples, you got the white mercy. We're getting the brown mercy. You know? No, it's the same. Yeah. So, just briefly, the 10 offenses. Yeah, okay. The first offense we can use as part of the course we're doing on forgiveness because it relates. And so I'll talk a little more about the first, and I'll talk a little more about the 10th, because that will help our chanting. So the first offense is what? What's the first offense? Blaspheme the devotees. I was going to write a book, The 10 Best Ways to Destroy Your Krishna Consciousness. And this would be definitely in the top 10. Criticize devotees. That's like if you want to like lose the favor of Krishna, that's the best way to do it. And sometimes we have to take a humble position when there's tension and friction and so forth. Because we do it because it's the right thing. Not I may be right and the other person may be wrong, but sometimes I'll take the humble position and go, you do it, it's okay. Because in that situation, it may be the best thing. And sometimes if I don't do that, I will make an offense to another devotee. Have any of you ever experienced making an offense and your spiritual life just kind of stopped? I mean, I don't want to embarrass you and raise your hand, but I'm sure, yeah, a lot of us, if not all of us, have had that experience. Or like I said, you just speak ill of a devotee, and the next day you're trying to chant japa, and your bead bag weighs like 40,000 pounds. You feel like you got cement in your brain, and and you can't chant. Anyone ever had that experience? It's like, you just went to a japa retreat. You can't employ anything you learned because something happened. That's how offenses work. So it's interesting, isn't it? Like, I can't chant japa, if I offend Vaishnava? First offense, don't offend Vaishnavas. You can't chant it. And if you can't chant japa, you can't become Krishna conscious. Very interesting, isn't it? Isn't it? Yeah. Mercy comes through the Vaishnavas. Krishna is pleased when we please the Vaishnavas. And so, sometimes we may not like everything a devotee does, but obviously there's so many good things about devotees. And Bhaktisiddhanta always wanted us to see the good. And there's this famous story where somebody came to complain to him, and he said, well, tell me something good about him first. And the devotee said, whatever. And he said, okay, meeting's over. But Guru Maharaj, I didn't get to tell you about the problem. No, finished. He didn't want to encourage devotees to be critical of others. I have a better story. You want to hear a better one?
Yes.
This is mind-blowing, this story. It really is. It's going to catch you so off guard. It's almost unbelievable. Do I have your attention?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not exaggerating. It's true. Senior brahmachari in the Gaudiya Math during his time was not chanting his rounds, and the other, you could imagine, like, well, Moore is not chanting his rounds. Oh my God, what are we going to do? We're going to his Guru Maharaj and tell him. Yeah. Something like that. Because, it's the head brahmachari and he's not chanting his rounds. It's a big thing. They went to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and he asked a question. He said, is this devotee engaged all day? And they said, yeah. They said, yes, he's engaged morning to evening. And you know what they expected Srila Bhaktisiddhanta to say, bring him in, give him the sauce, get my shoes out, knock him in the head, something. Because he's the Singha Guru. Not that he would physically do anything, but he's the Singha Guru. He would, chastise him and so forth. You know what he said? He said, this devotee has so much bhakti that he doesn't need to chant his rounds. He said, just see, he's engaged all day and he's not even chanting his rounds. He said, if I didn't chant my rounds, I couldn't do that. Of course he could, but what example was he setting? He said, see the good. Isn't that amazing? And he's demeaning himself. He said, this devotee has such a big cup of bhakti in his heart that is overflowing. His bhakti is overflowing. And because it's overflowing, he doesn't even need to chant. He can just serve all day. He said, my cup is very small. So if I didn't chant, I couldn't. Of course, they could understand that he was greater than this disciple, but he's taking the role of humility. Wow. You can all say, wow.
Wow.
That is wow. That is a wow-worthy story, if I've ever heard one, isn't it? So, I've read many stories like this about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and the theme is always appreciate, glorify, see the good. There's, because if you don't and you make offense, you will destroy yourself. If the holy name doesn't work for us, it's finished. The game's over. We're not going to be Krishna conscious. You don't want to do anything which would destroy your ability to chant. And that's a really good way to do it. One of the best, if not the best. So he was always very cautious in dealing with his disciples, that they would remain humble and not become proud. The point is, and I heard this from one of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's disciples, he said that if you criticize someone, whatever that criticism is that you made, it's going to come back and infect you, and you're going to have that same problem. Whoa. Hare Krishna. Have you ever heard that before? Like the boomerang, Then I thought, well, if that's true, then if I appreciate someone, then that should come back also, right? Vaisheshika Prabhu always says, what you appreciate, appreciates. The things you appreciate, they grow. So every devotee has good qualities, and every devotee is imperfect. And Prabhupada even said, he said, I can find fault with you, and he said, and you can find fault with me, but what's the point? If you want to find fault with Prabhupada, people do it, isn't it? It's inconceivable, but they do it. So if you even want to find fault with Prabhupada, you can. But what's the point? What good will come from it? So this is, we all have a tendency to be critical. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, He said, the reason that I find faults in others is because I lack the humility of a blade of grass. I don't have it. And so when I read that, I thought, this is really important for us to understand, because sometimes we have to criticize to adjust a situation, remedy a problem. But that's not what he's referring to. He's referring to criticism which is unnecessary, which is demeaning, which puts you in a better position by putting someone down. That's what he's referring to. So he's saying, he's playing the role of the conditioned soul. He's saying, because I have not even a drop of humility, that's why I criticize. That's really important to understand, because I know when I criticize, I just think I criticize because I can see the problem. What's wrong with you, Prabhu? You don't see the problem. You should be criticizing also. And so I think, because I'm smart, I criticize. But it's not. It's because I lack humility. I mean, there's so many reasons, but that's a foundational reason that he gave, which is really important. And we have to chant in humility. So now I'm criticizing, which is a lack of humility, and I'm trying to chant without humility, and it doesn't work. And if the Maha Mantra doesn't work, we are in big trouble. Yes or yes?
Yes.
That's the whole point of of following regular principles and not making offenses. Because if you do, then holy name doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, you can do all these other angas of bhakti. It's just not going to be enough. So it's really important. So what's the second offense? So their names of demigods? Yeah. Yeah. So most of us are not really into demigods, and we don't have this problem, but it's just to show that Krishna's name is transcendental. It's different. Krishna is the supreme. He's the source of demigods. The third offense, disobey the order. Yeah, I think that's obvious. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, well, my spiritual master gave me the holy name. He knows something about the holy name, but he doesn't know about so many other things, so I don't have to follow him. We always have to respect the Guru, of course, obviously. Fourth offense. Yeah. Well, this is really interesting. Blaspheming the Vedic literature or literature in pursuance of the Vedic version. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, the essential teaching of all the Vedas is to chant Hare Krishna. So if you're blaspheming the Veda or any literature in pursuance of the Veda, then you're blaspheming the holy name indirectly. Isn't that interesting? Hare Krishna. So you're not going to do good blaspheming the holy name, and chanting Hare Krishna doesn't work. Fifth offense? Yeah. So we hear about the glories of the holy name. It gives you love of Godhead. It purifies you. It's more powerful than any other spiritual practice. And you can think, nah, it's not true. They're making it up. It's advertising. No. Don't think that's an offense. And the next one is similar. Give some interpretation. The holy name is Krishna. So any other understanding other than it's Krishna would be an interpretation. And that interpretation would minimize it. It's Krishna. It's not, well, Prabhu, I fall asleep, when I chant Hare Krishna. I look at my phone. If Krishna were in the room, I wouldn't fall asleep. Yeah, I don't know about that. Because if you don't realize Krishna is his name, how would you realize him anywhere else? Right? So, the holy name is Krishna. We have to remind ourselves it's Krishna when we're chanting because we don't realize it. But at least theoretically, we accept it is non-different from Krishna, and therefore Prabhupada said when you chant, you should always be respectful of the holy name, that Krishna is there. Treat the holy name like Krishna. The next one? Seven. We're on 7 now? Sinful activity. Committing sin on the strength of chanting. The basic idea is that I commit a sin and I think, well, no problem. Chant Hare Krishna is right there in the scripture. It removes all sins. The problem is, if you commit an accidental sin, as we were reading, and you chant Hare Krishna, you'll be relieved from it because it was not premeditated. It was an accident. You slipped. It was not your intention. This offense is saying you had an intention of committing a sin with the idea that you could relieve yourself from the sin by chanting. And so what Prabhupada says about this is that mentality is actually worse than the sin you've committed. Whatever that sin was, the mentality that I could chant and become free from that sin is worse than that sin. So looking at it this way, all I would say is if you did intentionally commit a sin thinking you could chant Hare Krishna to get rid of it, don't do that, because once you start chanting, that becomes more sinful than the sin. I mean, that's interesting, right? Like chanting Hare Krishna is more sinful than the sin, but according to this it is. Interesting, right? Okay, eighth offense. Yeah, so karma kanda rituals elevate your karma. Chanting Hare Krishna destroys your karma. So we're not in this game to go to heaven. And so this is transcendental, it's not material. Ninth, to preach the glories of the Lord to the faithless. This is translated by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in a way many of us haven't heard, which is don't initiate anyone who's not qualified. So this is your last chance to leave. If you think I'm the one who's making, if I initiate someone who's not qualified, I'm making that offense. So, okay, you can stay, don't worry. But that's what it means. Thank you. That's what it means. Yeah, it also means don't, explain intimate leelas to unqualified people, and don't explain anything to anyone that's not going to help them in their bhakti. But specifically, it's an offense for a guru to initiate unqualified people, although sometimes we try to be merciful and we just give the holy name, and Prabhupada said, I'm prepared to go to hell for Krishna, when he was asked about that. And 10th offense? Yeah. If you think that I'm so fallen, the holy name can't purify me, anyone ever think that way? I'm so fallen, the holy name becomes impure when I chant it. I'm so fallen, I can't even be purified by the holy name. That's actually an offense to the holy name, because it's not you purifying yourself, it's the holy name purifying you. And the story of Jagai and Madai is just there to prove the holy name can purify anybody. Raise your hand if you think you're more fallen than Jagai and Madai. Yeah, that's called hyper-humility. Translated as fanatical. Prabhuji, I'm the most fallen. You're not. You're not the most anything. Yeah. So Jagai and Madai were saved by the holy name, and they were definitely more sinful than any of us. So, to not have complete faith, not have faith that you can become Krishna conscious by chanting, that's an offense. And it's also an offense to be inattentive. We know all about distraction, but specifically this inattention means to be, the inattention is towards material desires. Like my mind, like I'm chanting Hare Krishna, but there's material attachment. And then, the other one, to maintain material attachments, it means to still identify with the body, thinking, I'm the body, all these things are mine. Even though I'm chanting, I'm still in false ego, because I'm the body and everything that I have is mine, is false ego. So it's an offense to not think you are eternal servant of Krishna's spirit soul, and everything here is for his enjoyment and he owns it. That's an offense. So those are the 10 offenses. And if the more, distraction, yes. Chanting distracted, your mind's everywhere, it's not good. So you really want to chant in an environment which is conducive. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Gaur Premanand.
His Holiness Mahatma Prabhu ki jai.